We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Welcome to Washington Week in Review. I'm Philip Brasher, and my guest this week is Republican Congressman Don Bacon. And a historic day it's been, at least in the for President Joe Biden and his agenda. The House has passed 220 to 213, the Build Back Better Act, a $1.7 trillion package of climate measures and social spending priorities. Congressman Bacon, as this vote had 220, it was clear the Democrats had their majority. There were cheering broke out in the well of the House. What was going through your mind at this moment?
I think it's a bad bill. It's a giant welfare state bill, and it attacks our energy independence, as you were referring to with some of the Green New Deal measures in it. But I think I'm a half glass full person. This bill will not survive intact in the Senate. I'm sure the Senate will pass something, but it'll be a much more watered down version, I believe. I don't have a crystal ball, but Senator Manchin's already said he's opposed to this bill. And so I think there'll be changes, hopefully be changes for the better. And so for those who are cheering, maybe they cheer too fast, but I just pray that Senator Manchin holds tight, Senator Sinema hold tight, and we keep getting this bill to be less toxic. But it's a giant welfare state Green New Deal bill. I got to remind folks, at one point it was $10 trillion, the initial proposal. And so it's been whittled down to 1.75, but still a lot of money, 1.75 trillion. And, the CBO said yesterday it was scored at just under $400 billion in deficit spending. And also the CBO score in the tax center, policy center, said about 1/3 of middle-class Americans are going to see their taxes go up. And believe it or not, 2/3 of millionaires are going to see their taxes go down because of the SALT tax provision that was put in that allows people to write up to $80,000 in deduction for state and local taxes. And, most people don't even earn $80,000. And so I think I think this is a bad bill, and I think it's going to get worse the more Americans know about it.
I want to talk to you about the agriculture provisions in this bill. Interested in your thoughts on those. Your district, the Omaha area, is really at the center of a region of the country where climate smart agriculture practices, as we call them, are starting to take off. Omaha is the center of our biofuels industry. This bill would extend the tax credit for biodiesel, renewable diesel, a business sector that's really taken off, and creates a new tax credit, clean fuel tax credit, intended to keep that industry growing. What do you think of those provisions? Are they would you like to see them pass eventually, or you think it's a bad idea to put that kind of money in the program?
Some of these measures individually are not bad measures. I think when you put it all together and it comes out to 1.75 trillion and the tax increases, when you look at the bill in its totality, I think it's a bad bill. But I think I support biodiesel and we want to continue it. I think in the long run, though, the president's long-term vision for biofuels is not good. I mean, he wants to take us to electrical vehicles. And we know that most of the electrical vehicle components come from China. So we're going to be dependent on a lot of the battery, like the lithium and things like that. So I think a lot of the agenda for the administration is not in the long run healthy for biofuels. But I surely support those measures in this particular bill. And I wish they were standalone. A lot of the stuff in this bill could have maybe been better handled as standalone issues, but you bundle 100 things together then it becomes more toxic.
Another big event this week is President Biden signed into law that $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. You were one of 13 Republicans in the House that actually voted for that. Where do you think that's going to make the biggest difference in your region?
Well, Nebraska gets about $3 billion. Actually, we'll get more, but in the bill itself, $3 billion. But there's also other portions of the bill that over time through grant money will find its way also to Nebraska. But we need better roads and bridges. We know that in Nebraska, 1,300 bridges are antiquated, need to be replaced. That's a lot, 1,300 bridges. But I also have a heart for our locks. Our locks, though we don't have them in Nebraska, but I think nationally, being a 30-year Air Force guy, our locks are 90 years old. And Brazil is building locks. They have 3 times the capacity of ours. And so I would just put it in these terms. Americans, farmers and ranchers produce meat and grain products at a price nobody can touch. But if you can't ship it as efficiently, and it's going to cost you more to ship than, say, the Brazilians, then you lose that competitive advantage. And so I see infrastructure as a way to enable our commerce, our exports. Of course, you need it for public safety, but we're falling behind in this area. Our ports are out of date. We need rural broadband. Nebraska ranks 48th out of 50 states for broadband, and so we'll get about $100 million to help close that gap for Nebraska. So I see this as a good for our country. I don't think it was a great bill. I thought it was a good bill, one that I helped write and helped build compromises to get passed.
And at the same time, Congressman, is the other thing we saw this week is some members of your party are actually calling for you and your 12 colleagues who voted for the bill to be punished in some way. Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff for President Trump, former leader of the House Freedom Caucus, is one of those that leading the criticism. What do you make of that, and what are you hearing from back home?
I work for my district. I surely don't work for the Freedom Caucus or anybody else that's outside of my district or our district, like saying ours versus mine. And I did polling on it. Over 2/3 of our district supported a hard infrastructure bill at about $1 trillion. This actually was about $550 billion in new spending. The rest of it was reauthorizing the transportation bill. But about over 2/3 of our district in 2 different polls supported this hard infrastructure bill. Every major industry in Omaha supported this bill, but they opposed the Build Back Better bill. And so I saw a bill here that was overwhelmingly supported. And I think it was good for our country. It was something that I worked on for since like February, March time frame. And I thought it was interesting. People like a day or two before the vote, well, you got to oppose it now for partisan reasons. And that doesn't wash. It doesn't wash in Omaha. We do what's right for the country. We should do what's right for our state and local government. And there's got to, we want our country. What are the, right now when you poll Americans, inflation's the number 1 issue. But the number 2 issue is that they want to see Congress work and our government work again. They're tired of this dysfunction and total gridlock and warfare they're seeing. And this bill was a chance to come together and do something right for our country.
What can you say to those constituents and those folks out in rural America who are looking at the partisanship, the fact that you have colleagues in your party calling for you to be punished for having voted for this infrastructure bill, which, as you pointed out, includes a lot of money for rural broadband, roads and bridges, and things that are priorities in rural America. What does this say going forward in terms of trying to bridge the partisan divide on some of these issues? We have a farm bill that's going to be up in the next Congress as well. We saw a lot more partisanship on the House Agriculture Committee and the Senate Agriculture Committee now, for that matter. So
our system of government, when the Constitution was written by James Madison, it forces consensus building and compromise. If you want to have a purist run the country, it's not going to happen. You can get a purist in Iran, you can get a purist in a communist country, but our country has checks and balances. It is made for compromise and consensus. And I would just say that the folks that were talking about kicking people off committees, they represented a small minority of the House. They don't represent the mainline. Most people know, for example, our district, Joe Biden won by almost 8 points or 8%. It was the worst beating a Republican has taken since Goldwater in 1964. And John Katko, who they were really putting a lot of their energy on, Joe Biden won his district by even more. And so a lot of these people are saying this are in districts that went for President Trump by like 30 points. right? So that people got to understand we have different districts. I have made campaign promises to support infrastructure. I'm going to follow my promises. It would be my response. So, but the people who are saying this, they represent a narrow minority. And by the way, some of these people would be happy if we only had 160 Republicans in the House that all thought like them. But that's like 50 votes short of what you need to have the speaker's gavel. If you want to be the majority and have your party with the speaker's gavel, then you're going to have a bigger tent philosophy and know that you're going to have folks from urban areas, suburban areas, not just rural areas. And so we need to be thinking bigger. And I'm a party of Reagan. Reagan was big tent philosophy, and that's why he was so successful. This narrow mob mentality will not work, and it will lose in the end.
Well, that's a great note to end on, Congressman. We thank you very much for your time. We'll let you head back home after this week. Thank you again.
Thank you, and I appreciate your time.